Unless you've been living under a rock or stuck in a parallel world, you probably already know that Amazon Prime and Sony Pictures are making a TV adaptation of Robert Jordan's The Wheel of Time, which was recently confirmed to be coming out this year in 2021 on Amazon Prime Video. Much has been discussed and speculated over what we can expect from this first season of the TV show. Over the course of the last few years, we've received tons of official info from people who are actually involved with the TV show adaptation from book to screen. Here's everything I could find related to changes to the upcoming show, as well as what we know will be kept or added. I'll even discuss some known leaks, rumors, and speculation too. I gathered this from various sources, including Q&As from the showrunner, Rafe Judkins, from Brandon Sanderson, and from all of the teasers and tidbits we've received from official sources. Special thanks to the Dusty Wheel, Watt Up, and WattSeries.com for helping me gather the info. I'll be sure to include all relevant links in the video description. Spoiler warning, this video will discuss known plot points, character names, and some other minor details from the first 5 Wheel of Time books and from the first season of the TV show. If you haven't read the first 5 Wheel of Time books or wish to remain completely spoiler-free before the show comes out, this video might not be for you. You've been warned. Okay, let's get into it. First, a disclaimer. You can skip ahead if you want, but this is important. I know this can be a touchy subject for Wheel of Time fans. After all, the adaptation of this beloved series is being put in the hands of people we don't know, or we don't know if we can trust. There's a fear or concern that somehow our love of this beloved book series is going to be ruined or tarnished by the upcoming show. I myself have been a fan of this series since the 90s, and now I finally get to see it come to life. I'm nervous, excited, terrified, and so happy it's finally happening. Not to mention I'm fully invested in the success of the show because I have a YouTube channel dedicated to it. I just want to say this. Please don't shoot the messenger. You can dislike this video if you want, I'm not your mom, but recognize that I'm not the person deciding what will change in the show from the books. I'm just telling you what I know from official sources, interviews, and some speculated leaks and rumors. Second, what surprised me the most as I researched for this video is just how much Rafe and his team actually do care about staying true to the heart and soul of the books. I was surprised to find as many or more comments about what will remain the same in the show from the books, and how much time and effort is going into trying to make this show true to the story and characters that we all know and love. Brandon said in a recent interview that the series is in good hands. I believe it. I'll discuss some of this in greater detail as we go. Third, please keep your comments civil. If you have things to say about certain specific choices that have been made to change the story or the characters, I'm all for constructive discussion, but let's not resort to overly negative assumptions. If I see one more comment that the show is going to be ruined because of, quote, woke BS, I'll probably just straight up delete it. That goes for racist or sexist comments about casting choices too. If you can't say something nice, don't say anything at all. Remember, just like we shouldn't judge a book by its cover, I believe we shouldn't dismiss the upcoming show based on limited information. Why not wait to reserve judgment until you see the actual show? If you want to see this amazing series come to life on the screen as much as I do, negativity and review bombing won't help any of us, especially this early on when it's just gaining momentum. Let's get to the last battle, even if it means sacrificing some of the small things along the way that might be considered deal breakers for some fans and not for others. I've said this before, but recently on the Dusty Wheel, Brandon Sanderson himself went on record saying that this is another turning of the wheel, meaning this adaptation is not going to be exactly word for word from the books. The show will not ruin the books because guess what? The books still exist. They're not going anywhere. Okay, rant over. I'll try to remain impartial from now on as I list the known changes. As we look through this mountain of Q&As, I will not be reading all of Rafe's answers because I don't want this video to be an hour long. So I encourage you to pause the video and read the full responses as needed. Officially from the Amazon Prime Wheel of Time marketing team, to date we've received 9 different video teasers, a table read video teaser and a production announcement video, a few official stills showing the sets and behind the scenes, 9 Q&As, and a few other random interviews and minor things over the last few years as we've been building up to the show's release. There have also been some leaks, rumors, and speculation that aren't obviously official. But you should know, yes, there will be changes. Rafe said, I'm telling the story of the books, but as with any adaptation to a different medium, there will be differences. Otherwise, what will people have to scream about after each episode? But he also has stated on multiple occasions that he wants to stay as close to the books as he can. Regarding adaptations, Rafe said, if my job is protect the spine and the heart of what's there, sometimes that is changing things. Rafe has said that they do make changes, but everything goes through Sarah and Rafe, and then through Team Jordan, Brandon Sanderson, Harriet McDougall, and Maria Simons. Regarding Team Jordan's involvement, Rafe said early on, "I'm in communications with everyone on Team Jordan, and will be even more so once we're further down the line. I'm also the kind of writer who values all the data I can get, and then let it inform, but not direct my decision making." It's great to hear that Team Jordan is involved with decision making and approvals. Regarding some of these changes, Brandon Sanderson said this after having read the first 2 scripts over 2 years ago. "I found the vast majority of these decisions to be excellent choices, things that will give the show its own soul, but still in line with the feel and tone of the books. I can't say for certain, but my instincts say the fan base will, in general, respond to them positively. Overall, the thing I'm most impressed with is Rafe himself, who really seems to be guiding this show with a balance between love for the source material and his own creative vision. I'm certain there will be polarizing decisions made by the team, but the changes are coming from a good place, and I really like most of them. When changes are made, Rafe believes strongly that they should have a purpose and should help with character motivations and growth. When asked about changing character personalities, Rafe said, "We try not to. Most of our job is about making sure that we create a story and scenes that can tell the audience about character motivations and why they're doing something they're doing. This often results in some of the biggest changes, but they're ultimately put in to make sure that the character on screen is as emotionally true as possible." He also said, "Again, we'll try to include as much as I can, but we'll always cut things that don't tell us more about character." I also like how thoughtful Rafe is about the series. When asked what the heart and the soul of the show is, and why non-book fans will want to watch, Rafe said, "To me, and the way I've pitched it since I first became involved, is that even though the world is incredible, the magic system one of the best in fantasy, and the gender dynamics are so fresh feeling, the thing at the heart of this are the characters." So I think those first 3 things are the things that may bring in first-time viewers. It's the last thing that will keep them there. This doesn't mean we'll get to see everything from the books on screen. Rafe said that they have had to make cuts, and that it has been painful. "The writer's room floor is littered with my tears. Truly though, I don't want people to be unprepared for how different the show is to the books. To do a proper adaptation, it has to be. We have amazing writers and hugely helpful support in Brandon and Harriet to tackle these changes, but they're not small. Gird your loins, my friends." I think it's important to recognize that not all of the changes are because of Rafe's decisions. There are 100 different reasons why something might not work in an adaptation, but most often it comes down to budgetary restraints. Rafe said early on, "I imagine most of the things I'll be sad to lose will be actor or budget driven." Our good friend Geeky Airy at WatchSeries.com asked him, "What balance are you striking between recreating what's in the books word for word and letting the artists have creativity?" Rafe said, "What's really important to me is that when we're diverging from the books, that we know we're doing it. So every piece of production design, from shoes to swords to the White Tower itself, begins with pages of quotes from the books about that place or thing. The designer then takes it from there to build something that makes sense in our world, with our production concerns, our cast, our aesthetic, etc. But at the end of the day, it all stems from that first document, and it's something we can always go back to." Sarah Nakamura is a superfan and a consultant for the show, whose job it is to ensure that they don't stray too far from the source material. When asked about keeping dialogue from the books, Rafe said, "Every writer receives a document when they begin their script, put together by our book expert Sarah, that breaks down every scene in the episode and gives specific dialogue and scene references from the books for it. Especially for scenes that aren't from the books at all, we will find scenes from the books with the same characters together or talking about the same thing thematically. That said, predictably, almost all of the dialogue in the show is not from the books, so as to sound as natural as possible with our locations, actors, scenes as they're played. So we know there will be added scenes that aren't in the books, as well as dialogue that is inspired by source material, but mostly changed to sound as natural as possible." Early on, Rafe said that he wanted to add scenes that occurred off camera in the books. Another thing he said he wanted to add was more inner workings of the Aes Sedai. We will also see more character points of view in the show than what we get in the early books. You'd think there would be enough source material to not need to add anything, but part of Rafe and his team's goal is to think about the Wheel of Time show as a whole series, and not one book at a time. This requires some shuffling and changing and reorganizing of some of the characters and plot developments. When asked if they would be cutting major plot lines, Rafe said, "Not looking to cut major plot lines, more reshuffle, repurpose, etc." He also said, "There will be lots of chopping and rejiggering to make this story as fluid as possible on TV." When asked how far through the series did they consider when making changes, he said, "We have to consider it for the entire series, which has led to many in-room conversations, screaming matches. We're approaching this as an adaptation of the entire series, not just each book individually. So hopefully season 1 will feel more like the entire book series of The Wheel of Time, than it does like Eye of the World. He was asked, are there some major characters that appear in the first book that won't appear in the first season? He said, yes, and some of them are still slated to appear in later seasons. A few of these characters I bet you already expect this for, and one at least I think will surprise you. Rafe said that certain aspects of the Eye of the World will be used in different seasons too. Which parts of the story do you think will appear elsewhere? My bets are that the royal family scenes in Andor and the prologue scene won't be seen this early in the show. He also said he'll be condensing some of the middle books. Hopefully I've convinced you by now that while the show will have changes, and likely many small differences from the books, it's in good hands. Let's get to specific changes now, shall we? Regarding specific characters, here's what we know. Logain's storyline will be expanded. Bella will be played by multiple horses. Padan Fane's character will be more mysterious and hidden early on. Some characters like Sen Bui will not be on screen in the first season as much as they are in the first book. And certain characters that might be introduced early on but don't have a major role in the story until later will probably not make early appearances in the show. The Andoran royal family is likely one of these, as it seems very clear that Elaine and the Trakan family won't make an appearance in the show until Season 2. There are plans to either highlight and emphasize the impact of the Forsaken, or to possibly condense or cut some of the Forsaken. My bets are that the Forsaken will have more of an impact early on. One of the biggest character-related changes deals with Tom Maryland and how he'll be introduced to the show. Rafe said that some of those changes had to do with the casting of Alexander Willom. After seeing his audition tape, they, quote, moved toward his vibe for the character, which was younger and grittier than the books, Tom. He also said, Tom is a good example of changes made for the show. For one, I want characters to appear when we have the time to spend to properly introduce them and get enough scenes for them to attract a great actor for the role. Tom will also be playing a guitar and possibly not the harp as he does in the books, and his multicolored cloak still exists but will likely be different from the books as well. Oftentimes, the accents for different characters in the books will be based less on Robert Jordan's preferences or book descriptions, and will be more dependent on the accent of the actor who plays the lead character from that region. So, for example, the Kyrianan accent will be based around Rosamund Pike's accent, as Moraine's character comes from Kyrian, and the Malkyrie accent will be based around Daniel Henney's accent for Lan. Speaking of Moraine and Lan, it looks like Moraine's staff will not be in the show. And Lan's color-shifting cloak will also be different from the books, presumably because of budgetary restraints. However, Moraine's jewel, the Key Sierra, will appear on the show, even though it was not present in the short Moraine teaser. Aes Sedai characters such as Moraine will not have the ageless face all of the time either, as this is another high-cost budgetary restraint, according to Rafe. Speaking of restraints due to budget or casting, don't expect every actor to match the book's description when it comes to things like eye color, height, or in some cases, even their race or skin tone. I've noticed many people have voiced concerns about this particular issue, and much has been said about this both by me and by others. Personally, I just want the actors to portray the characters well, and I don't think their accent or their skin or eye color will make any difference. Rafe did say, I really want to stay true to the books in creating a world that feels way more diverse than what we're used to seeing in our fantasy TV shows. I personally think it helps to ask yourself why you might be overreacting to certain casting choices. Have you once complained that they didn't cast someone with golden eyes to play Perrin, or that they didn't find an actual Ogier to play Loial? Speaking of Loial, when asked if Loial would appear as an Ogier or just a large human, Rafe said, he's an Ogier. We also know they won't be cutting Narg the Trolloc, which is great news. One fun thing that will be added is that we will see an unexpected Aiel character in the first season, and Rafe says it will shock us. Rafe has been asked about new characters and how or why they are developed. He said whenever a new character is created, they're not fully invented. They always take inspiration from already existing characters in the series. There have also been concerns that certain major characters will be cut, combined, or condensed into a single person. Rafe said this about Min, Elaine, and Avienda. I'm not going to combine huge characters like that. Maybe sometimes a minor character folded into a more major one to make better use of our cast, but nothing nutso. Related to locations, some of the changes we can expect will be to see fewer villages in the retelling of the Eye of the World story. I'm of the opinion that as the show progresses and gains more popularity, some of these location-based budget restraints won't be quite as big of a problem, and I hope to see the scale of the world increase over the course of the show's run. It also sounds like one of the goals of the show is to stand out and feel different from other well-known fantasy adaptations. When asked if the Two Rivers would feel like Wales and Andor like England, Rafe said, I would like the show to feel very different than other fantasy things we've seen before. But Rafe also says he takes inspiration from Lord of the Rings, of course, and Game of Thrones, but also not Shannara. Many of the promotional materials we've seen so far are truly in keeping with Robert Jordan's vision of the world, which is to say it appears they are borrowing from various cultures and ethnic influences when building the world for the show, and not relying heavily on just one culture or aesthetic. I can see a lot of Asian-inspired influence in casting and props, like the katana-style heron-marked sword. Rafe said we would see many different styles of heron-marked swords, and that the katana style wouldn't be the only one. There are other minor changes that come from examining some of the video teasers that have been released so far. The Wine Spring Inn in the books is described as having 12 chimneys and a red-tiled roof. But the promotional teaser we received of the inn, as well as some leaked photos, show the inn with no red tiles and only one chimney. We've already discussed Tom's character changes and his use of the guitar. This is also a bit more speculative, but based on the Shatter Logoth Ruby dagger teaser, it looks like Matt will find the dagger in a room in a chest, possibly alone rather than in a large room filled with gold and treasure alongside Rand and Perrin. Another minor detail from the most recent logo reveal teaser is that it looks like they may be moving away from the snake and wheel logo to a simpler Ouroboros logo of a snake eating its own tail. It makes sense to me to focus more heavily on the Great Serpent and less on the wheel and snake, which has a bit of a Mickey Mouse look to it. In my opinion, the Great Serpent is a better symbol that's more in keeping with the Aes Sedai and the dragon. Here's a list of some other random changes. Rafe was asked, will Rand's romance plot remain close to the books? He responded, no. Let's just say I'm much more interested in polyamory than polygamy. And maybe give me a little more credit than assuming I'm gonna gut that entire story and ruin everything off a one-word answer. Rafe has also stated on multiple occasions that there will be LGBTQ+ representation in the show. When asked about gender, Rafe said, it's more about balance between the genders than it is about women. He also said he would be consulting with advisors related to how to best tackle the ideas of sexuality, gender, and mental health in the series. Related to certain aspects of how women are treated in the series differently from men, Rafe said, I'm a feminist, and it's very important to me that the show is feminist in today's context, so a lot of those things will be changing. So Rafe has said he will be changing many things and updating the story in some ways to better match our current world while staying true to the heart and soul of the books. But he's also said he'll be keeping the following. We'll get scenes in the Westwood with Tam and Rand, and we'll see Winter Night, Tarwin's Gap, Faldara, Tomon Head, and Egwene being leashed. Not necessarily all in the first season, of course. We will be seeing more of the Beltane celebration in Emond's Field, which takes place off-screen in the book. There will be braid tugging. We'll also see Teleron Riad, or the World of Dreams, and dream sequences. The prophecies that are featured in the beginning and ending of the books will be integrated into the show. We'll also get to see some of the actors speaking in the Old Tongue. And there might be references and/or Easter eggs related to previous ages, but they will be kept very subtle. Finally, there are a few other rumors that are unconfirmed that I'll briefly mention here, but please check out the related links in the description for more information. We know that Min will be in the first season, but it's speculated that she will likely not be introduced until Faldara in Shinar. Emond's Field might simply be changed to the Two Rivers, as there are a few random articles that have reported that the characters come from a small village called the Two Rivers. This is likely just bad research on the part of the articles, but I thought I'd mention it here. Master Hightower, the ferryman in Terran Ferry, might actually drown in the Terran River, rather than just losing the ferry as it happens in the books. And this is a big one that should be taken with a huge grain of salt. Perrin might actually be married to somebody called Lila Ibarra at the start of the series. And that's it. I probably still missed a few things, but I hope this was informative for you. If you've stuck around this far, thank you. Just FYI, I'll be out of town for the next few weeks. I really hope they don't release a teaser while I'm gone. I'll be missing JordanCon, and I won't be uploading any new videos for a while, but I promise you more are coming soon. Thank you to my patrons, and thank you for liking, commenting, and subscribing. Until next time.